Hello everyone, welcome back to another learning session. I want this learning session to be interactive, so please leave your questions and feedbacks in comment. During the entire session, we will be learning Apache Kafka upgrade from first version upgrade from 3.7.2 to 3.9.1. Second, the architecture migration from Zookeeper to the Raft. Third, version migration from 3.9.1 to 4.0.0. Now, what is Zookeeper and Raft? Zookeeper and Raft are both used for metadata management and cluster management or cluster coordination in Apache Kafka. Both uses consensus algorithm. Now, the Raft main difference from Zookeeper is Raft is integrated infra within the Apache Kafka, while Zookeeper was the external coordination service. The another question what we need to ask is like why we need to migrate or integrate Raft at this stage or time, and the simple answer is if you park all the tech benefits aside, Apache Kafka depreciated Zookeeper in version 4.0.0 and it will only support Raft, and that's why we need to move to Raft architecture. So during this session we will go through, or we will run this entire session in phases. The first phase will be doing the initial setup of Apache Kafka 3.7.2 in standalone and using the Zookeeper architecture, then creating some sample topics, dumping some sample JSON Key-value messages into the topic. The second phase will be migrating Apache Kafka from version 3.7.2 to 3.9.1. The third phase will be migrating the architecture from Zookeeper to the Raft, and this is the lengthy and it involves the number of steps. So I've highlighted some key steps over here. There could be more steps if you want to detail out in more details. Okay, and to understand these steps or the migration of Zookeeper to the Raft migration, this will help, where the first step will be to if I go back to the previous slide, the first step, or let me run through all the steps. First step is like enabling the trace, then retrieving the current 3.9.1 cluster ID, setting up or the configuring the Raft controller configuration. We have to do some configuration for the Raft controller. Then using this configuration and the cluster ID, we need to do a metadata setup for 4.0.0. Then we need to start the Raft controller and Raft controller the migration mode, then moving broker to use both Zookeeper and the Raft, then migrating the broker to use only Raft, then take Raft controller out of the migration mode, that is detaching the Zookeeper, and that will finalize the migration, then logical death of Zookeeper. So this pictorial diagrams will help you to understand. The first is the simple setup, then introducing the Raft and integrating with Zookeeper, or that is in the booting the Raft in the migration mode, then moving the broker to use both Zookeeper and Raft, then migrating broker to use only Raft, then detaching the Zookeeper and logical death of Zookeeper. Then the last phase will be migrating version from 3.9.1 to the latest version, which is 4.0.0, and this will be in the Raft architecture. Okay, for this entire session we will use some configuration and this setup. For the Kafka 3.7.2, we will use some custom ports. The default broker will run on 9092 and Zookeeper will run on 2181. For 3.7.2, we will use the custom port 19092 and 12181. For version 3.9.1, we will use 29092, 2181 for Zookeeper, and for the controller which runs on the default port 9093, we will use custom port for the controller which will be 29093. Kafka version 4, the default port we will not use, so again we will use the custom port which will be 39092 and the controller will be 39093. For this all versions, the Kafka log directory or the data directory, we will use /opt/Kafka data dir. This will be our main place where actual broker, Zookeeper and the controller data will reside. Okay, let's start with the hands-on session. So first what we will do is we will set up a Docker container image which will be our test bed or the playground where we'll do all our hands-on activity. So let me check, is there any Docker? Nothing is running. Let's set up Docker run -d. Let me give name as Kafka. Let me pass host name Kafka. I want to run as user for this lab, which will be root. Then I will export all ports 19092 to 19092 -p 1299092 to 29092 -p 39092 to 39092 -p 12181 will map to containers 12181 -p and 22181 will map to 22181. Okay, my mistake. Then it will be 22181 will 22181. Then P port expose 29093 will map to 29093 -p 39093 map to 39093. Let me validate with our earlier 19092 29092 39092 19092 29092 39092 2181 12181 22181 12181 22181 2 39093 39093 29093 39093. Okay, ports are exposed. Then I will use a alpine image 3.2. This is the latest image and I will export it as sh. Let get into the Docker image. So it will be docker exe-it, or before that, okay, before that, docker ps-a, docker exe-it kafka sh. So what we will do then, we will add some bare minimum packages which will be required for our this lab, and what we will do is we will let me copy paste this command instead of typing, which will add Java runtime, bash, and JQ for JSON. Okay, we got into the Docker container. So let's create our data directory. As I said, it will be the opt kafka data dir, where it is this one. So copy cd opt. So we are in opt. So okay, we got it. So within the opt, let's download all our packages in a one go. So we will duplicate all the packages from internet. Okay, we are done with downloading. So let's extract all the packages. We'll simply extract. We will not use verbose mode. Okay, now all packages are downloaded and extracted. So what we'll do, we will remove all the downloaded packages tgz. All downloaded tarballs has been removed. Let's rename the folder with simple names. Oops. Okay, what went wrong? Okay, the 4 point, why my, okay, let's do it this way. So let me move the remaining one also. So I will rename it as Kafka 400. Cool. Done. So let me do some simple settings for this lab before we start any further activity, which is to edit bin Zookeeper servers char.sh. I will lower down all JVM heap size. In this lab we won't be requiring high JVM, so we will lower it down 128. Also broker JVM, Kafka servers char.sh. So I don't require 1 gig. Two 56 MB is more than enough. Close it. Okay. 256 MB. Let's do it for all 3.7.2. Send Zookeeper. You can simply use sed command, but let's do it in this way for this time. To 56M. There will be no Zookeeper in 4.0, so not to worry about it. So directly it will be Kafka server.sh. So here again 256M, 256M. Good. Now basic setup has been done in order to use memory for this lab. Now let's start with the configuration. Oops. Config Zookeeper. This will be my custom Zookeeper, then config server.properties, again broker ID 0. I will listen it on 19092. Listener protocol plain text, yes, this is required, and here it will be my one, and I have to replace this, and here also I have to replace or add something which is 0.0.0 IPv4 address listen on, and what is my today's if config en0, it remains same, so it will be my IP address listen and my data dir, again what was it, so it will be Kafka logs Zookeeper localhost for this 12181. So localhost we have changed. Then we have uncommented a listener, updated the IPv4, uncommented the advertised listener to accept the traffic from the particular IP address, uncommented the security protocols, updated the Zookeeper. Okay, also I need to update the Zookeeper data dir. So here it will be OPT Kafka dir. So 372. Okay, grep -v, copy paste, sort unique. Okay, listener 372.190.92, advertise 190.92, IPv4 accept from the particular IP address, plain text protocol, Zookeeper, localhost 12181. Let's validate for Zookeeper properties, config Zookeeper properties. Another thing is Kafka, OPT Kafka dir, Kafka logs. Okay, OPT Kafka dir, Zookeeper 12181. Okay, so basic setup configuration is done for the basic setup. So what we will do, first we will start, or okay, let me create one simple sample JSON topic messages. Let me create it through the JSON file. So I'll call it sample message one JSON, and we'll update. I've already create something. So 5 messages I will produce, which will be for each message user 1 will be key and the JSON file having the multiple values. Okay, and if I simply run this command, it will be JQ, yeah, user 1 and 4. So what I will do, let's start Zookeeper first. So Zookeeper, what I will do, I will redirect all logs to what it will be. One second, let me find that command. Yeah, it will be no hop 372 ZK .log to redirecting the error and standard out and standard error to this file, running it in background. Okay, I just started. Now hop. Okay, it started. So Zookeeper is started. Now let's start similarly. Let's start our main broker. So I will ampersand and I will use the simple no hop 372 broker. I will use bk to an ampersand 1 locks. New recorded new ZK controller. ZK controller now will use node 9. So okay, my broker and Zookeeper started in the standalone mode. Now it's in a Zookeeper architecture. My metadata and the cluster controller is Zookeeper. So let's do some basic stuff. Okay, now I will create topic using this simple command. So it will create a topic named T1 Kafka, partition 1, replication factor 1. Since it's in a standalone single broker, let's keep the partition and replication factor as 1 and bootstrap pointing toward our 372 or 3.7.2 Kafka broker. Oops, something is wrong. Let me find it. Okay, I got it. So my bootstrap server address is something different. Okay, I'm using wrong bootstrap server. Okay, nothing. So create topic. Yeah, need to change bootstrap. So the topic created, list topic. Good. Now let me produce some topic messages. So simply I will run the following command. Okay, let me explain. So this is the JQ command which passes the JSON file, and we'll use the Kafka console producer for the CLI tool as a CLI tool to produce messages in Kafka topic. Let's not do same mistake. Let me change my broker or bootstrap server properties pass true. I want to parse key. I want to parse key with the separator as semicolon. Okay, so messages has produced. How we'll validate that? That is again in a command. So 1 second. So what I will do? Okay, now since we have produced some messages, let me read those messages, whether it has been produced properly or not. Yep, those are produced properly. Since I'm using again during the reading the messages out of the topic, I'm using some formatter which is like print the timestamp, print the partition, it is, yeah, print the partition, then print the key value, and from beginning, so it will read all messages. So all my messages has been successfully produced. So this is simple 3.7.2 Zookeeper architecture standalone setup has been completed. Now let's start migrating, or yeah, what we can do is like we can simply do the version checks by running version. So we are in 3.7.2. okay, and let's start fnq as we said, and yeah, let me change this to 32 everywhere. Okay, and we are running 19092. Let's try to capture it. 1909305 3051. Yeah, we are running this port from this binary. So either way, we validated it. Now let's try to migrate it. So as per the documentation, so what documentation says is, let's go through some documentation to understand. Okay, sorry, I've been running around here and there. Once again. Okay, now since we need to upgrade to 4.0, the bare minimum required to upgrade the 4.0 is to first we need to upgrade it to 3.9 or 3.9. So that has been clearly documented somewhere around here. Okay, let me go through some other documentations also. Pull over here. So what it says, upgrading. So here they have documented clearly. So for the cluster in a RAF mode with the version older than, we recommend to first upgrading 3.9 before upgrading to 4. So that this is what I was highlighting earlier. And to upgrade versions where it has been. Okay. One more document. Here is one more document which says notable changes. Okay, through 3.7 what it is saying. Let me follow this one, since we are migrating to 3.1 to 3.7. So first what we have to do is, what are all the steps? Upgrade the broker one at a time, shut down the broker, upgrade the code, restart it. Once the broker is done, we need to add this inter-broker protocol to setting 3.9. That has been done. After doing that, restart the broker one by one. Okay, so let's move on to the labs. So ps minus ef. Let me stop all Java versions, or stopping Zookeeper and broker, earlier Zookeeper and broker, which is running in 3.7.2. so before that I will stop system admin thumb rule to back up things first. Let me do that. CVF one data. In case of rollback, if I want to do during this lab, done. Doing the system admin things, that is done. Now going to Kafka 391. So here what it will do, we will do the same thing. First config vi config Zookeeper properties, change the data dir, which will be this. Then my port will be 22181. These are the two changes for the Zookeeper. Okay, then config server properties, again here x uncommenting key configuration, then editing it to listen on IPv4 0.0.0, and I want to listen on advertised port, which will be and here ports are 29092. Done. Shift G, and going to my Zookeeper will be the 22181. One configuration left, which is to update my data dir or the log dir, Kafka log dir. Okay, that my basic setup is done. So let's start Zookeeper and start my broker. Since we are using the same folder of 3.7.2, so it will pick up the existing data, metadata, cluster ID, etc. from the earlier setup, and this should migrate version. So let's do that. Let's validate that. How we'll validate? So simply run again no hop command. So what was it? No Oops, where it is. Zookeeper, and this is 391, so I will rename it as 391 and start. So let me go through the logs if I find anything abnormality. So it is using all my 3.1 binaries. 3.1 binaries. Kafka dir, so it is using the earlier snapshots and everything. We started listening, it picked up earlier version. Okay, Zookeeper is started. Let's start now. 3.9.1 broker using the 372 or 3.7.2 broker log directory. So to start that, what we will do, we will run this same command what we run earlier, no hop. Here the broker will be 391. Okay, this is the 391. So let's start no hop 391 broker less. It is started using 391 binaries. Shift G info. It is loading all metadata, earlier metadata. Okay, it's loading metadata. Okay, it's loading partitions, consumer, so underscore consumer offset partitions. So going through logs will always helpful to understand. So here they recorded the new Zookeeper with the partition. Seems everything good. Info. Let's do the reverse engineering of this thing. grep-v. I don't want to see info. Let's see if any errors being printed apart from info. Nothing. So all good. Message formatter is 301, and as for documentation we need to check one thing, right, which is yeah, this is 3.9.1. so what we need to do is like we need to set interbroker protocol version to 3.9. so let's see if it's already loaded, because by default if we are not mentioning, it should be loading it. Still we will explicitly see if that is been required. Yeah, it's already loaded with 3.9 latest version. So no need to follow this step. Yeah, no need to follow this step. And also let's see one more parameter where it is. Yeah, log message formatter version. Log this should be 3.8. Change the log formatter version. Yeah, this is not changed, so we need to change only this part. So log formatter version to 3.8 we need to change. Okay, let's do it. So simply what we need to do, ps-ev grep java div kill minus. We are not using the Kafka server stop command since we are not using any default ports. Okay, we will do the rude way of stopping, which is killing the process. And okay, so what we have to do, we have to update this configuration file. So let me add over here the very first property file. So what we need to add, we need to add this 3.8 if I'm not wrong. Okay. So let me move no hub bk no hub bk dot one. Okay, now let's start the broker again. All loaded. Let's verify the interbroker protocol version and log formatter version 3.8. Done. So as per documentation, I showed like it is interbroker protocol version is 3.9 and my log formatter version is 3.8. So all necessary things has been taken care. So moment of truth, what about my messages? So whatever my earlier messages, since it was there in my 3.7.1, sorry 3.7.2 should be migrated to 3.9.1, all my topic and messages. So an SEO consumers, and we need to change the bootstrap port to 29092. Okay, all my messages also been migrated. All my messages within the topic T1 Kafka exists. No data loss. Bingo. We have done the phase 1 of the phase 1 and the phase 2. Where phase 1 we have done the setup of 3.7.1 Zookeeper architecture standalone setup. Phase 2 we have migrated 3.7. Sorry, 3. Oh, confusing. 3.7.2 to 3.9.1 we have done the migration of the version. Now the phase 3, the bigger chunk of this session is to now to run the migrating the architecture from Zookeeper to the Raft. So let's start. So let me go to the documentation again. So where it is. So they have given some steps which we need to follow. No, this is not the documentation I'm looking for. Congratulations. Yes. This is the documentation I'm looking for. Feature upgrade bootstrap. Okay. and here there will be some migration documentation, Raft versus Zookeeper. Raft, okay, running the Raft connect is migration. Zookeeper to Raft migration. Let's follow the steps. Okay, limitation preparing. Yeah, trace we need to do. Interbroker configuration is set to 3.9. Again, this is done. This is already 3.9 is set by default. It took. Then we need to enable the trace. Let me copy this and go to my Kafka. Vi config log properties. What was it? Metadata migration. Is this exist? No. So let me add this configuration in the very beginning of the file. Okay, this will enable my metadata migration trace. So what we have to do, we have enabled the trace. Now provision Raft quorum, Zookeeper cluster ID. Okay, let's run this to identify our cluster port, default port we are not using, we are using custom. So 22181 cluster ID. Okay, we got the cluster ID. Next we need to upgrade the controller. Okay, let's follow this. Sorry, once again. Retrieving the cluster ID is done. Now what I will do, I will run the controller quorum. So it will be my config graph controller properties. Here I need to assure things. Now process rules, it should be the controller. Okay, node ID, let's follow what the documentation says. At least for this lab we can, if you want, we can change. It should be 3000 and control column bootstrap server, control quorum bootstrap server. So I will change it to, it's not default port. So what I will do, I will, so 29093, sorry, it's 29093, and here instead of localhost it will be my IP address, and again here 29092 I want to listen on IPv4, explicitly listen on my particular IP address, controller listener name, let's put it as controller, and listener protocol, okay, listener protocol, what documentation says, listener name, listener controller, quorum updated, we need to put NAJ migration, we need to give the migration, okay, that we will add. Let's go through the other documentation. The logs dir I will change, oops, again, instead of temp, I will change it to the Kafka dir, number of partition, let it be okay. So just we need to add a couple of more lines as per the documentation. So we will add, you need to add what? Process controller, everything, so server basics. So let me add over here, what was it? Zookeeper, interbroker, and this part. Enable Zookeeper migration to it will connect to my Zookeeper, and broker will be plain text. Interbroker listener will be plain text. IBP, interbroker protocol, plain text. So what we are doing here is, where is my PPT? So we are creating this stage where we are creating the raft controller to listen to the Zookeeper mode, and it's in a migration mode. If you look into the configuration, the migration mode is enable, connecting to my Zookeeper on the localhost. Okay, so we are creating that cluster and localhost. So what we'll do as per the documentation, again let me run this once again to get the cluster ID. Oops, it will be 22181. Once that has been done, we need to run Kafka storage in the standalone mode since we are running a standalone. So how it will look like is this. So I will run standalone mode, cluster ID. Cluster ID, I will select this cluster ID. Then it will be in the standalone mode and with the configuration files. So this will create my metadata in my directory which you have mentioned in the controller. So if we look into here, go through here, so some metadata properties have been created, and if you want to read this, it is created with the cluster ID, node ID, the metadata has been created. So let's start my controller now. Simply by running this, we are using Kafka controller, server start.sh. We'll put no hop raft controller 391 controller. Okay. Raft controller has been created. Let's validate this. This should metadata but controller in dual writing mode. Okay, since it's in a dual writing mode, received metadata. Okay, so we have set up. So the important thing we need to note is channel request recorded a new craft controller. Okay, something is wrong. 9093. Let me validate again that. So seems something wrong we have done in terms of the raft controller configuration. Two 9093. Yeah, advertise here. So let me validate simple thing. Grep f1 v hash config raft controller sort unique 29093 controller plain text 29093 Zookeeper connect to 22181. Now everything seems normal. So let me create. Let me start the raft controller once again. Quorum is ready for the Zookeeper to raft migration. So my quorum is ready for Zookeeper now, waiting for Zookeeper broker. Okay, no broker are known to the raft. Since no broker we are connected, these are the normal locks. Now what we have to do, we have to configure my broker to migrate it to the raft. So simply stop my earlier broker. My earlier broker was this. Broker has been stopped. So let's update the configuration file. Now what we need to update, what documentation stage. Sample ZK broker server properties. So my broker ID is there, my everything is there. Now we need to add one particular, my controller. This we need to add it, very important. And IBP inter broker protocol, enable Zookeeper migration, Zookeeper, and we need to add this configuration. Okay, so oops, going into this. So formatter, what are the things we need to add? We need to add this. controller, and it will be 29092. Copy, paste. This will be controller. We need to add these two things, IVP controllers. Since we have already set, there is no need to add it because it will automatically take that. Migration to Kafka Connect is there, IVP is there, my Bootstrap server, controller quorum, controller broker ID, I mentioned lesson 9092, and here I need to add particular protocol. Plain text is there, and we need to add this controller plain text. Okay, and we have connect localhost, and the migration data. Migration, Zookeeper metadata migration enable, quorum enable. Things are enabled now. Now let me run through the configuration once again. So my log formatter is there, Zookeeper migration enabled is there, then the control quorum bootstrap server, then controller, broker ID, rest all things remain same. So now what I will do, I will simply go and start my services or the Zookeeper broker in both Zookeeper and Raft mode. So before that, I will just rename this. No hop, no, this is for the controller. No hop, this is for the server. Controller, no hop. Yeah, this is VK in both. Let me put it in this way. VK in both. Some info. Loading the metadata. So what we have to do specifically in terms of what we need to check. Okay, so we need to check this thing. So grep -i migration. Okay, migration is true. Is in migration mode, editing the ZK broker since it's in a migration mode, starting the additional component Zookeeper migration. So this is in the migration mode started. So So once the migration mode is started, so in the controller we need to check one particular completed in this thing. Completed the migration of metadata from Zookeeper to RAF. 57 records have been generated and so and so. So what documentation says? Once migration automatically begin. Yeah, migrated completed from Zookeeper to the raft. This message we have received it. So migration has been completed from Zookeeper to raft. So we are at stage like here. We have configured broker to point Zookeeper and raft, and that migration is completed. Metadata migration. Since the migration is completed, the migrating broker to raft. Now what we have to do? We have to migrate broker to raft, means completely moving out of Zookeeper. So what it says is, don't see the IBP metadata version, so just remove this. Then Zookeeper enable, we have to comment. Zookeeper we have to comment. So whatever the Zookeeper component we have added, we have to comment it out. Another thing what we need to do, what we have to make a note is like, we would replace with broker ID with node ID. Okay, and we need to add the process role to the process roles as broker. So these are the some configurational changes we need to do. So what I will do, I will simply first, let's stop the, or let's do the configuration. So what are all things they have asked us to change? We need to do this broker and one, oops, node saying we need to add node ID. So node ID 0 0. The process, this line we need to add. Let's add this line over here. The process roles is broker. Okay, since we are broker, so if we want to, in the future when we are running the broker and controller is the same, so it will be broker comma controller. And IBP anyways, we are not mentioned any IBP since it will automatically take. Remove the Zookeeper migration flag which has been enabled. We need to comment it out. Comment out this thing, and what we need to comment, we need to comment the Zookeeper connect. Go to the bottom, there will be a couple of Zookeeper. Yeah, comment Zookeeper comment, and that's it. That's it. Okay, so we have taken care of all the configuration. We had commented it out. Now let's detach broker from Zookeeper and just point to raft. Save it. So last what you have started is this 256 MB. Kill -9. Server properties. So what I will do, I will do the same thing and in raft, BK in raft. Okay, let me start this. Delta transition migration state from ZK migration leader. So Trey, did you make ZK KRaft handling raft delta update ZK migration? So these are the traces which it's writing. So let me go to the very beginning of startup logs. Yeah, controller session recorded new raft to 9093, received a metadata, dual writing mode. One second, I'm checking the wrong logs. Okay, starting Kafka recovering flush. All info, nothing. 2181, no, 9093. Okay, it's purely connected to the raft mode. So as per the documentation, we are here. Broker pointed to raft and raft still listening to Zookeeper. Shift G, what it's saying. Controller version raft migration, updated the raft migration. Okay, so no errors as of such. So things are good. What no documentation says. Now since you restarted in RAFO, finalizing the migration now. Since we have to finalize the migration, what you have to do? Zookeeper metadata property. This is done by removing the Zookeeper metadata property enable property. Okay, so we need to comment out this. We need to comment out the Zookeeper. We need to comment the Zookeeper components from the Raft controller properties. Let's do that. Okay, now this is the raft 9797. Let me edit this and comment out the Zookeeper components. Migration enable, no. So my controller process role is controller, node ID is this, interbroker listener plain text. Zoo, done. Now, oops, let me do this thing. Raft controller migration. It's in post migration mode. And finish waiting for socket info Kafka 3.9.1 committed raft server this operation persisted 9093. Let's find if it has registered 9092 in the logs. No, it has not registered any search. Let's check in raft mode what are the last logs. Follow stage info attempted, follow a new Zookeeper controller will now use Zookeeper. Disconnected, that has been disconnected. Once the disconnect is done, it is new. I now use this thing 1751. After that, attempting use this thing, attempting durable transition, completed the transition. Done. So this is also completed. Now we have data Zookeeper completely. So let's see what Zookeeper log says anyway. So session timed out, unable to client, probably close the socket, close the socket, close the socket. Done. So we need to get rid of Zookeeper now. So what we will do, we will simply run Zookeeper is stopped. Let's see if it's registering anything. If we have stopped the Zookeeper, any logs or error, it is nothing. So just validating. So listening 9092 9093. That's all. Okay. So my phase 2, which is running, or phase 3, which will be migrating Zookeeper to raft migration, is completed. Migration of architecture from Zookeeper to raft in 3.9.1. so let's validate the messages which we have earlier produced, and let's see if those all messages exist with the topic and within topic all its messages. So simply by running our earlier command, consumer, yep, is 9092 topic T1. Let's read all the messages. Yeah, all my messages exist and persisted. No messages, no data has been lost. So this completed now migration of 3.9.1 Zookeeper to raft. Now let's migrate version from 3.9.1 to 4.0. Since my setup is already being migrated to the raft, now I can easily go and run the migration. So to run the migration, as I said, first we need the cluster ID. So CLUA, what was it? That is a cluster ID, but let me create it again. So my storage formatter, what my document says, this has been done. ZK migration is done. So what all my thing is, I need to open the migration to the 4.0 through the 3.9. So So upgrade the broker one at a time. So simply I just need to upgrade my broker one at a time. Once that is been done, I need to do the raft. Once raft is done, I need to upgrade my feature. Okay, both my brokers and raft I need to upgrade from 3.9.1 to 4.0. So simply what I will do, I will stop my all process first of all. So this will stop my 3.9.1. So my Java process is running. So let's move on to the Kafka 4 directory. Here what we'll do, we will migrate the broker and controller. So what we'll do, raft here, controller properties. Here all my controller ID, quorum, advertise controller, controller listener. Everything is there. So what simply I will do, I will copy my Kafka 391 RAF config RAF controller to config controller properties via config controller properties. Here I will change now ports. So simply what I will do, I will change it to 39093, rest all remains same. 39093, my controller will be again 39093. This is controller listener name, rest all remain same. Let's see the directory, it's opt kafka data dir controller logs, and also now broker. CP. So let me see the current server.property. Okay, this is controller and broker. See this same controller and the broker combine logs. So let's not use this. Let me copy the file from 3.9 because the configuration will remain the same, so I will not waste time in redoing the all configuration. Kafka 391 config server property. Here I came, log formatter version. Let me go through this. Is there any log formatter version? Okay, there is no such thing specifically as over here. Just we need to upgrade it. So all my boolean and metadata will everything will change. So let me go and remove this configuration, a comment of this configuration, Zookeeper controller. Here I'm running on 39093. Let's change all the ports. 39093, my broker ID, my node ID will remain same. Here 39092, 39092 protocol controller plain text Kafka dir logs Kafka dir. Okay, let's start. Okay, now no hop bin Kafka server start sorry config controller properties. I want to redirect all logs to no hop 400. Let's see, contr controller dot log 2. So let me log all my standard out standard in error in my controller log, and let's start this. Validate the logs. Some logs. Waiting controller quorum for the future finished waiting high watermark 39093 39093 listener. Okay, Kafka server started. Our registration has been persisted metadata log. No errors. All log seems normal, and my controller started. Okay. Now what I need to do? So once my controller is started, I need to, I guess, once my broker one at a time shut down, broker update the code and restart it. Once it has been done, so broker will run at the latest version. You can verify the cluster performance meet the expectation. As the done, you can verify finalize the upgrade by running the feature. Okay. Now let's run no hop. The same command bk server properties bk logs finish loading the metadata. completed transition, high watermark. Okay, it's in a BK logs only. Kafka logs, TDIR, finish controller acknowledge, caught up. Okay, my controller broker ID has been registered. Broker caught up the transition starting to recovery. Publishing initial metadata. Broker is in recovery. Completed loading the Kafka logs. Consumer log. Broker ID transition starting to started. Starting to started. Okay, now my broker has been started. Consumer, instead of 9092, let me put 9093. Let's see all my topics and messages persist. Oops, what I've done? Anything wrong? Three 9092 topic. It's not 2, it should be the 3. 39092. Okay, all my persist. All my messages persist. Okay, it's 4.0. We are in 4.0. All my messages persist. So we need to run now feature. So what's a command? Command is to run the feature upgrade. So bin feature upgrade bootstrap server. My bootstrap server will change. My bootstrap server will be 39092 upgrade release version 4.0. Group version upgraded to 1. Okay, my release version also been upgraded. Okay, now what I will do, let's read the topics. All my data persist as is. Okay, since we have executed it, let me read this logs tail no hub star. Empty feature apoc metadata feature, finalize the features. Okay, this is the line which we got. So my feature has been updated. recorded a new raft controller 9093. Fine. Is there anything very specific to the feature? Okay, these are all features to the group now. So specifically 840 logs. Let's see in the broker log. Shift G. So when we executed the feature, disconnected, cancelled in-flight API version requests, a new raft has been designated, assigned the new leader, console consumer generation new ID. So things happened when we are done the feature upgrade, stabilize, and everything is done. So when we ran the feature upgrade, my quorum got disconnected. Okay, my node got disconnected. Whatever my controller node got disconnected, it migrated its feature. It came back in, again registered, then stabilizing the group, etc. etc. Okay, when we run the feature, it will go and update the controller quorum. Got it. So once that is been done, note the cluster metadata downgraded is not supported in data no indicator. Metadata. Now let's try this IBP things. What we can check are couple of things. What I want to check is this interbroker version from the logs. So what I will do, I will restart the broker better. Since the feature upgrade is done, let me restart both. Let me start the controller. Controller restarted cleanly. Let me start the broker. Broker also been started. Grep no hub broker log with what I need to check. Interbroker protocols. Okay. There is no interbroker protocol. We need it. There's nothing, and what we need is log formatter version. Okay, There is no such messages. Let's redo consumer, read all my topics. Yes, I'm able to read it. Now let me run that very specific command where I will see all my topic along with timestamp. Okay, great. Okay, this is been current time is 8:47. This has been produced at 13:44. Okay, this is old data. 1977. Okay, got it. Now this is rightly reported. So we have produced at 5:26 today. Got it. So this data is fine. So that's it from this session. I know it's a very lengthy session where we have completed the very huge process of migrating the Apache Kafka from 3.7.2 to 4.0 from Zookeeper to Raft architecture. So that's it from today's session. Again, I repeat, your valuable feedback, questions, please do comment in this video so that I can go through your comments. I can improvise myself. If any questions, we can go through the question answers, and if required we can debate on certain point where we can brainstorm on things. Thank you for your patience and time. I know it's a very lengthy video and exhausting video, but this is what it is and this is what it takes. Thanks a lot.